We'll do a review in the Sichas in Chelek Yud Zayin, volume 17, the second sicha for the Parshas Tzav. This is a Rashi sicha, which the Rebbe also learns out at the end in Yonim Ufloim. And the Rebbe explains the Pasuk Aleph. From Pasuk, in the Pasuk it says, Eish Tomid Tukad Alam Mizbeach Leisirbe. The simple meaning of one who ties the Pasuk would be that a constant fire should be burning on the Mizbeach, never to be extinguished. But Rashi translates that what it's meant over here in the Pasuk Eish Tomid is Rashi might take the Werter Eish Tomid. Rashi quotes the Eish Tomid and is Mefarish, and Rashi explains differently. Rashi says Eish Shenemer Batomid. Eish Tomid means the fire by which it says Tomid. Which fire does it say Tomid? The fire that with which you would light the menorah, that fire is a Tomid fire because Shenema ba'ol halis ner Tomid. That says the halis ner Tomid. So that Eish Tomid, the fire that lights the menorah, in which this is called a Tomid because it's always lit. So that Eish Tomid is Tukad ala Mizbeach. That comes also, that fire comes from the Mizbeach. Avhi me'ala Mizbeach achitzin Tukad, also she from the external Mizbeach, from the Mizbeach that stood in the courtyard. That's where you take the fire to light the Eish Tomid, the menorah. The Pashtus Lentman. So, what is Rashi coming to explain here? Because it seems like the word Tomid is extra. It should say Eish Tukad al Mizbeach le'sirba. Le'sirba means not to be extinguished. Means that it's always a. Why is there an extra Tomid? So Rashi says this is teaching us that this is going on the Eish Tomid from the menorah. The Pashtus Lentman. Simply we learn. Rashi made the Bavon and the word Tomid. Rashi is coming to explain over here the word Tomid. It appears to be extra. If it is to emphasize that the fire that's on the Mizbeach needs to burn without stop, it would be sufficient to say should be a constant fire, not to be extinguished. As it actually says in the previous pasuk. It doesn't say Tomid. It says that it should always be burning, not to be extinguished. Why does the pasuk add the word Tomid over here? And Rashi explains with it. The Rebbe will bring it down later on that there's several times because there were several arrangements of fires, and there's a different psukim. The Rebbe will bring down the Rashi in a minute. So Vos Gitzu. So what's the issue that Rashi faces in this pasuk? Vos Gitzu in them the word Tomid. What added by the word Tomid? Rashi, so therefore Rashi learns as the Werter Eish Tomid reden do wegen Eish menorah. Eish Tomid means the fire of the menorah needs to be started from the Mizbeach. Was Wert angerufen Ner Tomid. Since it's called Ner Tomid, that's the Eish Tomid. As ihr Tukad, how does she lit? Hadloka kommt von Eish Mizbeach. Comes from the Eish of the Mizbeach. Seems to be very strange. Here we're talking about the whole parsha. Is talking about the Mizbeach, and all of a sudden we're jumping in about a din of the Neris. Is aber nicht verstandig. It's not understood. Aleph, number one. The ganze parsha do red wegen dem Mizbeach vinyonim. The whole parsha is talking about the Mizbeach and the different aspects of the Mizbeach. Koil wegen Eishev Mizbeach. We're also discussing about the fire on the Mizbeach. The vikum do. So how does it come here? Especially taking in the literal level of the pasuk, why are we all of a sudden talking about a law about the fire of the menorah, where the fire of the menorah needs to come from? The pasuk doesn't really fit that way. Well, we have an extra word, Tomid. No, but that's not such a problem. Because Tomid needs to add to the loisirba. Those was the pasuk is moisif. The word Tomid, the fact that the Torah adds the word Tomid, can an island, and one can interpret it in Pashtus simply as the pasuk zoktas to lib toisus at gosha funtimidus. That the reason the Torah says that, the verse says that, is to emphasize additionally it must be constantly, and not only in the negative, don't put it out, but in positive. in a positive way, that it has to always be burning. That Eisha from Mizbeach, that was ein Tomid, that has to be all the time, unkenefsik, without interruption. Why can't we learn like that? That seems to be more pshat in the pasuk. And as you actually see, as an Eben Ezra, Eben Ezra was from the Roshi Pashtona Mikra. He's from the leaders who explain the simple meaning of the pasukim. He actually translated as the word Tomid, that the word Tomid that it's coming to add the idea of constantly by Meishum Mizbeach. Not talking about the Neuro, talking about the Mizbeach. The fire of Mizbeach has to be more constant. Now, Rashi's interpretation is based on the sages and the interpretation of the Rosh Chazal. But Rashi doesn't just bring down the Rosh Chazal, especially without saying Rabbi Sein over here. It seems like Rashi learns this pshat in the pasuk. Choch as other pirush is in Rashi is given from the Rosh Chazal. Although that this interpretation of Rashi was taken from the expounding of our sages of blessed memory, but it's known, we already mentioned it, spoken about this many times. As a feel Chazal, was Rashi brings even when Rashi brings interpretations of the Chazal on the Torah, they have to be forced out, needed in the simple meaning. Especially when the Pirush Vertim Pirush Rashi nicht gebracht mit dem Loschen. Especially Rashi brings down this interpretation, doesn't say Rabbi Seinu Dorshu, our teachers expound the Kitzbah. From them is verstandig, since Rashi doesn't say, that means that he assumes that this is the simple shot. Thus from them is verstandig, from this is understood as their Pirush is noch mehr Mucher from Shatak Suv Matzvei. That this Pirush is even more than if he would say Rabbi Seinu Dorshu. This means that this is the regular pshat of the psukim. So how could this be the regular pshat of the psukim, Adin and Menorah, in the middle of talking about the Mizbeach, and we can interpret Tamid means on the Mizbeach. Further, it seems like Rashi himself learned that this pasuk of Tamid goes on the Mizbeach fire, not a fire of the Menorah. Rashi himself explained earlier. As Riba kan Yikidis Harbe. The Torah mentions here many fires. Al Moigdo, Eish al Mizbeach Tukad Bay, Eish al Mizbeach Tukad Bay, Eish Tomid Tukad al Mizbeach. Rashi mentions four times, and brings our posik Eish Tomid Tukad al Mizbeach. Dr. Rashi Kulam Nidrishu b'Meseches Yuma. They have all been expounded upon in the tractate Yuma. Shenechku Rabbi Seinu. Over there is a machlokes between the Chachamim b'minyan and the number Hamarochas Shoyusham, how many arrangements of fires were there. So that means this haste. So this is one of the four psukim, and this is one of the marochas. As the posuk Eish Tomid Tukad, we go red. That this is one of the arrangements was eine gewinner from Mizbeach that were on the Mizbeach. Have we touched Rashi beperushe from the posik? So how does Rashi interpret it in our posik? It is gate of Neisha Menorah that this is talking about the fire of the Menorah. That the fire of the Menorah is taken from the fire of Mizbeach Achitza. Now we're assuming this is not, and we'll see in a minute that Rebbe will bring down another shot that the whole pasuk is only talking about the fire of the menorah. That's what we're talking about. That's the. So Rashi says that it's talking about the arrangements, and then in the previous Rashi, and here Rashi says it's talking about the menorah, not about another arrangement. Gimel Nochber. In that pasuk Gufa is Rashi Klach Mefarish, and this pasuk Rashi says as Yumay Lo Sichba Gate of Nation Mizbeach. So Rashi says the pasuk is talking about the Mizbeach. Not about the menorah. So in base, the Rebbe is going to say, no, it's not like the whole pasuk is just talking about the menorah. Some Mefarshim want to explain that the extra word Tamid is a hint for the menorah. But the Rebbe says it's mashma from the Rashi. The Rashi learns that this is the pshat of the pasuk. Base. We could have answered as the commentators interpret in Rashi as the pasuk that this pasuk itself is Rashi nit moitzim yedei pshutei. Rashi is not taking it out of the simple meaning that we're talking about the mizbeach. There should be a fire. The ganze pasuk read wegen der marochav mizbeach. This whole pasuk is actually talking about the arrangement that was on the mizbeach. Rashi kommt noch mefarish sein, but Rashi is only coming to explain as from the word tomid do by mizbeach. Again, the word tomid by mizbeach is faran and there's something that we can learn about the fire of the menorah. It's not changing the whole pshat of the pasuk that we don't talk about menorah. It's just an extra word tomid teaching us about something about the fire of the menorah. It says tomid as that he too, the menorah needs to be lit from the fire of the mizbeach. So this is difficult to say. Rashi is mashma that this is the way Rashi is learning the pasuk. Why? Why is it difficult to say? That Aleph, if you saw Rashi gedarf zogen, Rabbi said lomdu mekan. They should have said that our teachers learned of here or the mekan lomdu from here to the kiyetzavay, which would show that this is some special halacha that we're just learning out. Number two, base. Rashi is mastic from pasuk oichdam word eish. Rashi also calls the word eish. Up zusammen mit dem Wort Tomid. And also in his commentary, together with the word Tomid, oichdam word eish. He says eish Tomid. Eish shenemer but Tomid. So Rashi is trying to tell you that the whole eish over here, this haste, as Tomid is metar dem eish. Tomid describes the eish. It's an eish of Tomid, which they do in pasuk. So we're not just saying there's an extra word Tomid here that teaches us about Tomid, but this is the Eish Tomid. That's how the Eish of the Tomid, which is the Eish of the menorah. Rashi's trying to fit it into the pasuk of here. In Gimel from Arichas Alosh Mepirush Rashi, from the length of Rashi's commentary, he says, "Afhi me'al hamizbeach hachitzin tukat." She too, the menorah, is from the mizbeach hachitzin tukat. Rashi quotes the word tukat. Hamizbeach, these are psukim of the word al hamizbeach. Tukat is verstandig as teich das ein in Hemshech HaKosuf that he interprets this in the flow of the pasuk. Tukat al hamizbeach, that this is taken the fire from the mizbeach, that fire is on the mizbeach in order to light the eish tomid, the fire for the menorah. Gimel. Seine Dome Forschung, was verändern die Stile zwischen der Monte Pirush Rashi. Some commentators entered the contradiction between the Rashi. Rashi seems to say that Tukka, they're all talking about the arrangement, and then Rashi says that it's talking about the menorah. As the pasuk Eish Tomi Tukka Dal Mizbeach Verti Mesechta Yuma Nit Gedarshend Benigeya Di Maroches was darfen sein of Mizbeach. That this pasuk of Eish Tomi, our pasuk, is not expounded as far as the arrangement that needs to be in the mizbeach. This particular pasuk is Tomid. But we learn top alla maroches from the Friedrich Psukim. But we learn all the arrangements from the previous Psukim. And those was Rashi sagt kulam nidrishu b'mesechta yuma b'chulu b'minyan hamaroches. Rashi quotes all these Psukim and he says they were all. So it seems like Rashi says this is also darshan, even though we don't find it in the Gemara. It does not that Zayin, welchen Inyan Mesecht Chazal, Mitzvah Chazal, darshan di Besukim. So this was only, he says, to point to you in which Mesechta, in which subject, in which Mesechta are expounded these Pesukim, so that they are in Seches Yuma, but not to say this also. That's not the Rashi. Up here, Rashi is medayik. We know how careful Rashi is accurate in his language. His movement is understood that the teretz is in constant glatik. This is totally not understood. This answer, not smooth. If Rashi is just trying to make a reference where these verses that are expounded. Well, Rashi would have satisfied himself by saying, "Kulam nidrishu b'meseches Yuma." They were all expounded Meseches Yuma. We find it many times in Rashi. Rashi doesn't have to go in B'meila muzman onem and those was Rashi zokt shenechluku Rabbi Seinim Miyam Merochas Chulu. That this Rashi brings down that our teachers disagreed. Miyam Merochas is negei leperushay. It's important for his commentary. The Rebbe will explain that actually, if the word Tomid was coming to talk about the Mizbeach, about the Tomid seems to say less. Rashi said before that Tomid doesn't mean all the time. Tomid means regularly. The Kanim Laila, as the Rebbe will bring down. So therefore, Rashi can't learn that the Tomid is coming to add to the Leisirbe. It must be talking about something else. Dalet, the beer was it, the explanation of it. The Teuchem from word Tomid is Rashi Mefarish Frier by the Menorah. Earlier, Rashi explained what is the meaning of the word Tomid. Kol Laila v'Laila Kori Tomid. Every night and night is called Tomid. Just like we say, Oilas Tomid. The Oila, the constant Oila. It means from day to day. It's not like always Oila, it's daily. The Minchas Chavitim. Namar, the Pasuk also says there that the God brings the Minchas Chavitim, it says Tomid Vein. It says also Tomid Vein Machtzis Bek Machtzis Barav Kulu. You bring half in the morning and half in the evening, and we call that all the time. And since that's the case, is doch schon schwer, so we have a difficulty. Is doch schon schwer zu sagen, l'shitas Rashi. So it's hard to say shitas Rashi as the word Tomid in the Dan, that the word Tomid in our case, Meisiv Zayin is coming to add the inyan in the idea of Atmidis, in the idea of this constant. Bisman, that to say that there is like more in time, it's hard to say that. If then was the pasuk that it shouldn't be extinguished. Not to be extinguished means that it's always on. So you can't say Tomid is adding, but Adrabah, because it's the contrary. Loisirba means as that age that brennen on Iberais. Loisirba means that it should be burning without any interruption. Aber Tomid can mean an erdit midis yom malain. But the word Tomid can mean just days alone, or the leilas alone, or nights alone. When in Zay Gufa, and within the day or the night, the Oilas Tomid, just like Oilas Tomid, Nidam Gantzen Yom Laila, not the entire day or night. So how could the word Tomid add to beyond Loisichva? Loisichva means that all not. The Rebbe learned Rashi as with the Posik Ish Tomid, that's what Rashi learns. That the Posik Ish Tomid kum the Torah Marbezain and under age, the Torah is coming to include a different fire. Was by ear state La'alis Ner Tomid. Over there it says La'alis Ner Tomid. As with Darfi Matlik Zayin Al Mizbech, you have to light it from Al Mizbech. So now the Rebbe is going to explain how this is actually not a contradiction, and we need the previous Rashi, which helps us understand this Rashi as well. Hey, like them is Eich Muvan. That's what we also understood. Was by Rashi bringt Freire Arab Yikides Harbe v'Chulun. He says there are many tukats. Aleph, he says nit mistapek with zog riba kan kides harba. He's not satisfied by saying there's many, and then to rely and that you'll count over how much there are. Nor a bringt alle erter, but rather he brings all places. Oich the pasuk ish tamid. Also our pasuk ish tamid. Base. Arichas haloshim from Rashi riba chula harba, that he says a lot of. He can't zokum b'diyuk. He could have said exactly. He said them on the same many. He says Arabi kiddush kan. It was 40 kiddush. I'll make the chula. And which Rebbe is going to all explain all this. Und was noch dem wer sagt kulam midrashum besechte yumo is a meisiv, and after he says they were all expounded is a meisiv shnech Rabbi Senim min amrach soyisham. They disagreed how many arrangements were there. Now we understand this is so beautifully going to work now. From Rashi's the oisin to madgiv zayin. Rashi's intention here is to emphasize as the pirush do is told in the Chelek days that this interpretation here hinges on the different opinion for seinen dobim minyan hamarachas that there are in the number of marachas. In other words, that Rashi's interpretation over here does not go according to everybody who says that all the marachas are included. This is one of the marachas of Mizbeach. This one here is not counted if it's going in the menorah. That will go like the opinion that doesn't count this one as part of the marachas. Bald as riba kan. Since the Torah makes over here a lot, is mistaber loimer b'pshuta mikro from the riba kan, since it's here, and with discussion is the mizbeach. Is mistaber loimer b'pshuta mikro. So b'pshuta mikro, it makes sense to say as Allah yikidas redden kan mizbeach. They're all talking about the mizbeach. Leute, they was halt as eine given viel marachas jeden Tag, according to the opinion that hold there were 4 arrangements every day. And therefore, is euch der posik eish tobetuken al mizbeach, that posik, which is the 4th one, nichlo mit the psukim was reden wegen marachas mizbeach, that is included with the psukim that talk about the arrangements of the mizbeach. Und Leute dem man da hat Rashi nicht was zu mefarer sein in dem posik. Rashi has no need what to explain this verse at all. According to that opinion that there were 4 marachas, according to his view, so we'll have to squeeze and learn the taich from Tomid of that. If the Rabbi Ezra learned, okay, it's like the Rabbi Ezra learns or similar. The Tomid is to add to the sicha. Lloyd, the under the day is sober. But according to other opinion, as there are only 2 or 3 arrangements. It's Rashi Mefarish. Rashi comes to explain as they haben euch chocha from Shuta Shemikra. This is also a proof from the Psukim that there was not 4. Or in Kanal is Gladger zu sagen. It is simpler to say when it says the word Tomid as ich Tomid red wegen der Menorah. So there was no, so then there would be no need for another pasuk eish tukat if it's not for the menorah. As tukat malam is beach, thus is there pirush on pipshut shemikra. So the tukat malam is beach, and tukat me alam is beach. Thus is the pirush on pipshut shemikra. So this is the simple meaning that is talking about the menorah. There's no 4. The Kiddush bin Mizbeach seinen Harbe, mehr wie eins. There's Harbe, but not 4. That's why Rashi says the word Harbe, and it doesn't say the number because telling you there's many. It's either we learn 4. If we have 4, then that fits together because Kan, it's by the Mizbeach. So we'd rather say by the Mizbeach. They're all talking about the Mizbeach. But according to the other opinion that it wasn't 4, then it's talking about the Menorah. And there may be many, but not 4. There could be 3. That's why the Rashi didn't want to say specifically 4. Halacha. For the Nyonim Ufloim al derech halacha in Pirush Rashi. There's wondrous ideas according to halacha in Rashi that we find in Rashi. By Kama Dinim, by many halachas, wo sehr Teuchnis zusammengestellt von 2 Protim, was eine tolle Zebazeh, where the idea is put together from 2 deep details that are hinged on one and the other. You know, it kommt auf the shaila. So there comes up the question, what is the ikar prat v'siba? Which is the main detail and cause? What is the prat hamesugah? Which is the result? You have 2 things. What is the main thing? Which one of them is the main and which one is the result? Take for example, you have to bring the 2 breads on Shavuos. Is there din? The din that this has to be the new, this mincha, this meal offering, the flour, has to come from the new wheat, from the tvu chadosha, from the new grain that they cut by Shavuos, before Shavuos. And before this Telechem, you're not allowed to bring any korbanos from the new grain. In the Beis Hamikdash, you cannot use any other meal offering. You can't bring anything else before that. What is the main and the reason? Tzidos is the din. Is it because the Shtei HaLachem, that's the main thing. Azei muzen zayin the erste mincha from the Nayat. They need to be the first. The Shtei HaLachem have to be the first of the new grain. unas mesubah from them, and because they have to be first, as a result of that, tormen fardem nit makriv zayin from chodesh kenan de mincha. So you can't, because they have to be first. You can't bring any other mincha, any meal offering, before you bring the shtei halach. So the reason is the shtei halach have to be first. The result is you can't bring anything else before that. Other, this is din menachos. This is the din of menachos. Azay darfen hoben amate. The menachos need to have something that prepares them. Kedei mizol megan makriv zayin de menachos min hachodesh. In order so that you can bring new menachos from the new grain, you need someone to be the first one. Most frier zayin da krovish shtei halachim min hachodesh. So that's why first you have to bring shtei halachim min hachodesh to says. Those was the shtei halachim zayin the erste for the tvu chadosh. The fact that they are the first one, the tvu chadosh, is as to live matters to zayin durch them the menachos von min hachodesh. In order to permit that they should be able to bring menachos na chodesh, so therefore their purpose is to permit. So what's the difference if we say that this is a din menachos or it's a din b'shtei halachim? But there could be a difference. So one of those. Let's say that you violated and you did bring an offering of a mincha of the new grain. Sie bleibt euch noch dem der Isur zu makriv sein, an ander mincha von tvu chadosha. Are you then not allowed to bring another mincha from the new grain? So you already have one mincha that permitted the grain. So you didn't do it the right way. Are you allowed to, or you still have to wait for the shtei halachim? If the time is about shtei halachim, darf es sein der erste from the nair tvu. If the reason that they have to be the first of the new grain. So we lost that opportunity. It's about the shtei halachim. Können schon sagen, wie nicht sein die erste. They can't be the first because so there's no any more provision in them. From the tvu chadosh, you can bring the menachos of the new grain. But if the reason is that you're not allowed to bring a mikvah chodesh, either the shtei halachim zayin nesmatir before we have the permitting the shtei halachim to permit the new minchas, is the isur don't know them. So then that provision will still be. Even after you already brought the mincha from the chodesh, you still need the matter of the shtei halachim. Kozman hat nicht gebracht, the shtei halachim is in statt der matter zu bringen mincha min chodesh. That permitter, the permitter is that permits it. The shtei halachim did not there, so we can't bring any. So if shtei halachim functions as a permitter, then it's still going to remain. Doesn't matter that you did it through another mincha, because the permitter wasn't done yet, so you have to wait for the shtei halachim. If, however, the idea is that shtei halachim has to come first, it's not first anyway, so it's too late. So they have a similar question in our back. This obligation to light the menorah from the external mizbeach, is it a law in the menorah that the menorah needs to be at the Eisha menorah dav zayin from mizbeach hachitzin? That where does the fire of the menorah has to be from mizbeach hachitzin? Other the sachiv was he's talking about parsa mizbeach, or there's an obligation, and that's why this is in the portion of mizbeach. Of the meila they gave the mizbeach. This is for the mizbeach. Von ihm darf man nehmen dem Eish umzuziehen the menorah. You need to take the fire for the menorah from the mizbeach. What's the difference from the nafkamina bazar? What would be the difference? Say there's no fire of the mizbeach. See, is just ma'akiv that lokav from the menorah. Would this hold back the lighting of the menorah? If this is part of the menorah, is b'shas is nitokin eisha mizbeach. Kemenish in the menorah. If there's no fire of the mizbeach, you can't light the menorah because there's no fire to take it from. But if, on the other hand, this is a law in the mizbeach, as Shas Mitoke in Eisha Mizbeach, there's no fire in the Mizbeach, fault of the Chiyuv. Then there is no obligation. Falls away the Chiyuv. You pick a light from another fire. If it's a din because the menorah needs to be lit from the Mizbeach, it's a din in the menorah. So we need the menorah, we need the Mizbeach. Without the Mizbeach, we don't have the din, we don't have the fire lit. If it's a din that the Mizbeach has to serve it, but there's no Mizbeach, so we'll have to light it elsewhere. Aderech halacha is mashma. According to halacha is mashma. This is a din in hadlokos eish shel hamenorah. Mashma, this is the fire of the menorah, as is darf kommen from Mizbeach achitza. That it has to come from the outer Mizbeach. Aber von dem, was Rashi is meshana from Loshen Lazal. Rashi changes the language of our sage lesson memory. Eish tamid shamarti l'chol lo yitehei ela b'roisho shel Mizbeach achitza. This tamid that I told you, that's what it says in the Loshen Lazal. They said this loitel liberation mizbeach achitzin should be the relation mizbeach achitzin. Rashi changes from that lashon or schreibt. Avhim al mizbeach achitzin took it. She too from the mizbeach should be lit. Is mashma dos is a din mizbeach achitzin. Then it seems like that it's a din in the mizbeach achitzin. Asayin eish darf oich wie andere yikedes do, just like the other fire zayin der was von ihm wird gezunder eish menorah. You have to use it to light the menorah. But if you don't have the menorah, then what are you going to do? So you can still light the menorah. This comes out according to Rashi. It's also simple the psukim. I used the Torah limud in their parsha. Torah put it in the parsha with the mizbeach. It's mashma, it's a din in the mizbeach, not a din in the menorah. Was let's make them eish mizbeach achitzim. Or not in parsha menorah, not the parsha menorah. So Pshutish Mikra and the Lash's change of the Lashon is mashma that this is also a din in mizbeach and not a din in the menorah. Zayin, they're for them in Bavedis Hashem. So what's the lesson from this in the service of Hashem? The Kalim was an given in Mishkan and Mikdash tells them close with Tzvei Sugif. The vessels that were in the Mishkan and Mikdash generally in two categories. They can be divided in two categories. The Kalim was an Gishtanim Bifnim. Those vessels that were on the inside. Mizbeach HaPnimi, the inner Mizbeach, the Mizbeach HaKteris, the Menorah B'Shulchan. And then you have Mizbeach HaChitzim, you have the outside Mizbeach. In Avodas Ha'odam, in the service of man, the Tzvei Afani Avodah, represent the two types of services. The Avodah Mitzicha Lein, the working with yourself B'Fnim, in the inside, and the Avodah Tzutonum Pearls and Efatzvet Nidna, the service to do and to impact another Jew. So Mekara Zayin, Oichdim Zayin B'chutz, to bring also those who are on the outside, bring them close, Chelek B'chutz, Olam, and also your portion of the outside, B'dugmas Mizbeach HaChitzah, similar to the external Mizbeach, was Davke, if Im Haltman Nakriven, the Karbonis von Al-Eden on him, you brought the Karbonis of all Jews, so that's where it represents the bringing in from the outside. Those is the art from Bitter in Yom Ha'olam. That's the place where you're mevarer the matters of the world. Or more specifically. Hadlokas HaMenorah is the Inyan HaTorah. Lighting the menorah is the idea of Torah. So the Torah is called light. One of them steht lahalis neir tamid. That you bring up a constant neir, which means v'dechiv Talmud Torah, which is the obligation always to learn. Shenki mitzvahs. Mitzvahs have limited time. Especially if the learning is his craft, that's what he does. Then you're in a ner tamid. You're always standing mekushim mit meibesh. You're always tied to the Eibishter. So one who sits in the tent to study Torah, he can argue. Baldes can sein an ungezundene menorah. Sin, there can be a lit menorah in a way that it's constantly lit. He doesn't have to come on to do mitzvahs. Even mitzvah that passes, which the din is that you should interrupt. But he doesn't say, he says, no. And how much more so was that for why should he have anything to do with worldly matter? Even or with another Jew was relative to the place and the greatness of one who is able to be in the tent of Torah, the other one is on the outside. If them come the Eroah, so that's where we have the lesson. As the menorah wird darf angezogen werden from Mizbeach. That you have to light the menorah from the Mizbeach. Unavade is the Mizbeach apanimi. There is the inner Mizbeach, the Avodah Nailis von Ayidin mit sich, from the greatness from Ayidin himself. But the Eira menorah tzitzachon nicht from Mizbeach apanimi. But which fire do we use? Not from the inner Mizbeach. That's closer to the menorah. Because this is the Avodah from Pnimis Alev. That would be the love Pnimis Alev, not Davke from Mizbeach Chitza, specifically from the outer Mizbeach. Noch mer bediver Rashi comes to it comes on Rashi as the Eish noch zeindig of the Mizbeach Chitza, that the fire, even while he's still on the outer Mizbeach, is a shame for Bundam and Nesha Menorah. He's already connected with the fire of the Menorah. In the meaning from Avodah Sa'odom, what does this mean? In other words, that is for the purpose of the Mizbeach's purpose is the menorah. In the inyan von Avodah Sa'odom, they as beim Yeshiv Oil Chomtzin the Leichten der Eish Uneira Torah, in order by the one who is sitting in the tent and studying Torah should be lit and it should shine the fire. Uneira Torah, light of Torah, darf ihm früher sein Negeya. Then first he must be important to him, as Ba'ayid was gefinzem achutz, that even a Jew who finds himself on the outside, so brennen und leichten the Nerabaynish Vesodim should also burn and shine the lamp of Hashem, which is the soul of man. And damult erst, and it's only then, can the Eifleichten sein Nerabayim mit Neratori, he can light up his own lamp of Hashem with the light of Torah. And od der Verbund von Menorah mit Mizbeach HaChitzon. This connection, this tie of the menorah with the Mizbeach HaChitzon, so abgeben sich mit dem Chutz, to devote yourself, to give yourself over with the outside, is a Vazoi from the gay. It's so important. Those ver nirmas. This is hinted in unser Pasuk with the word Tomid. This is the hinted word Tomid. But the inyan from Tomid, the inyan of constant, the Tmidius in the Avodah from Yeshiv Oil. This constant in the Avodah of Yeshiv Oil, this is accomplished Davke, specifically to them, was geht durch euch Nisyonis und Schwierigkeiten von Chutz, that he goes through the test and the difficulty on the outside, und vernimmt sich mit Peul sein, euch auf andere, and he occupies himself to impact also other Yidden. Damals gerechter zu sein Aveda, then he reaches his service from Limud HaTorah, from study of Torah to the Mile of Tmidius, to the advantage of Tomid. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Tzav, Tovshin Chavtes.